Oh, are we rolling?
2, 3, and action. Introduce yourself, please.
Hi, I'm Josephine Jones, and welcome to the interview. I think I kind of identify as a multimedia creative. So I came from a fine art background. I was the first trans designer at London Fashion Week. And I think my medium has always been my message, and I think that comes from Goldsmith's fine art. I think I love working with the kind of garments that hold a certain power and their ability to change how you feel. The language that we all use unconsciously, I think there's something really beautiful about that. And I guess I've moved through many mediums, kind of clothing, video, and I just identify as a creative. I think anything where I get to kind of, dress up and change the world, that's where I'm most kind of at home. I think I've always been really creative. I used to write short stories. My mum and me used to make dresses together. And she would let me wear them and sort of dance around as like a young kind of gay kid or whatever. And, that always just felt like such a kind of freeing moment, that sort of liberation of sort of transformation. And definitely during my transition, that was very helpful, that empowerment. I think I've always been really creative. I've been drawn to kind of expressing myself through my clothing. I used to dress up with my mum. She'd make kind of like princess costumes for the school play, and we would dress up, and there was this kind of transformation, and that was allowed, and I was allowed to do that, and I feel really privileged to have had that gift, from my mother, and it's something that I love. So whether it has been writing and kind of moving into design and making my own video art at university, I think it's a syncretic thing. It's a world that I'm creating. It's a message that I'm trying to spread. How has art and creativity aided my own personal growth? I think art and creativity is intrinsic in everything I do, all the actions I take. It's what gets me out of bed in the morning. It's the inspiration for everything I do, everything I make, the friendships and the company I keep. Media that inspires me, whether that's books and old feminist philosophy, or it's films and it's old Warhol and Candy Darling and Jackie Curtis and Holly Woodlawn and Marsha P. Johnson. It's the culture of creative people and the world that I surround myself with, so it's a constant source of inspiration. A me thing, a Josephism. I think it's got to be this knowing, because I've been a fantasist, I've been an idealist, I've been kind of trapped in a prison of fantasy and self-representation. I've been a realist and a self-defeatist, and I've beat myself up when I didn't need to. And I think now I have through glamour, through my art, my creative practice, I have a real ability to tune into this kind of fantasy, and that really is like in the dresses, and that energy is in the films, and it's something that I kind of carry with me, but it doesn't control my life. It's this kind of fabulous illusion that I can kind of tune into, almost like a channeling or something. So it doesn't dominate my life or run my life, but I think this being able to be kind of in touch with your creative spirit, this inner child thing or something, like this part of yourself that is like reckless and wild and free. Oh my God, personal style. I mean, it's been like fashion history, art history. Some days I want to be a Renaissance woman. You cannot tell me that I'm not Michelle Pfeiffer from Scarface, or Ophelia drowning in a river, or a Margiela campaign from 2001, or some ambiguous fashion reference that, or you can't tell me that I'm not the poetry that I wrote that morning, and I think it's about this combination, this collection of disparate things, the right shoe, the right haircut, the right dress. And I think that is a creative practice that I very much indulge in as a bit of self-care. I think I made this dress that it's kind of one of the most fabulous. It was one of the first dresses I made. It's spiral, bias cut, hand printed. hand painted and then digitally printed kind of panels in blue and pink and in chiffon and on the bias, and it's just it's a gown, you know. And I think making these things that embody, I mean, that was where I was at. I was like newly transitioned just recently on Easter, and I wanted something that was going to make me feel as fabulous as I knew I was. And you know, and I think I wore it for I think it was like an ID shoot or something with Tim Walker. At the end of the shoot, I just walked upstairs kind of wearing it and was like, da-da, and he's like editing or whatever. And he was like, oh, go on then. He took a picture. And I thought, oh my God, he wanted to take a picture of me in my own dress. That's so lovely. And when I bought the issue to look at the other shoot I did, he'd put it on the next page in a full, it was like a kind of portrait, like kind of leaning back in the dress. And I just was like, wow, that's me, the most authentic I've ever seen myself, you know, in a dress of my own creation, like a photographer I love working with. And it was just like, it was like jaw-dropping that, you know, some like working with people that you respect that also respect what you do creatively. I think it's a very British thing, isn't it? A bit of rebellion, a bit of drama. Yeah, I think, you know, I'm under no illusion that rebellion is essential, especially right now. Rebellion is 100% in the work I make. You know, I work from my own subject position in my artwork and in my films, but, you know, the clothes I make have always been about empower. They've been a love letter to trans women, really, and to women that are, you know, that way inclined of this kind of sensitivity and this very specific take on like a modern traditional femininity that is soft but rebellious. You know, she is delicate, she is pretty, but she is fierce. Make no assumptions about the Josephine Jones woman, you know? Like, she will ruin that silk chiffon dress running in the protest to get someone, I don't know, trying to hurt someone or something. But she's gonna look good doing it, of course. As an orphan, community has been a means of seeing who I really am, you know, encouraging me when I've been down, you know, it keeps me going. It's a support and an infrastructure that is ever present, you know, even in the kind words that people express to you about the, you know, community is everything, you know. The worst punishment for any human being, and even in a maximum security prison, is isolation. You know, and I think to be isolated or to be isolated by, alienated by a structure, by a political group, by, you know, human beings is awful. And I think as queer people, you know, even just with other women, you know, it's this coming together and this bodily assemblage of people that there's a mutual respect and understanding, even in struggle, even in adversity, that kind of keeps you going. If a tree falls in the woods, does anyone hear it? You know? And I kind of feel like, you know, fashion demands an audience. It's the only industry that thrives on change. And I kind of like that, you know, because we're pushing forward some change that is community-based, you know, and you know, clothes are nothing without people to wear them. "2020 has been a real reset for me. I think I've come back to the fundamentals, you know, things like, you know, getting enough sleep, nourishing your body, you know, touching base with family, like these things that allow you to be strong and give longevity to what you do, you know. I used to feel like a candle in the wind, you know, I was burning so bright, but I was ready to go out at any time. And I feel like now I feel bolstered by community. I feel inspired by people that share the same values as me, and especially in trying times like what's going on in the world, you know, there's so much more awareness of mortality. No,
No.
I feel like I wish my creativity was so linear, but it's not. It's a mess, a beautiful mess, and I can't control it. And sometimes I plan and it doesn't work. And sometimes I don't plan and I have my camera and I make something that I'm so proud of. Sometimes I don't want to sew and I start and it's 4 a.m. Sometimes I'm in a horrible mood and I need to sew just to have something to take my mind off of something, and it becomes something really beautiful. I think it's something that kind of pours out of me, like out of my pores or my veins or something. So no, I can't really control it. I think I've lived in Portobello. I've lived in Brixton. I've lived in Lewisham. I've lived in Haringey, which is kind of north, and I'm in Dalston at the moment. I think I have a love affair with London. You know, it's an affinity and it's like a husband that I can't leave. You know, I think Paris is like my lover, and like England's like my husband. And I love my husband, but I need to get away sometimes. So it's been interesting seeing it empty during, you know, the pandemic and stuff, and going for long cycles and discovering streets that inspired me to come to London in the first place. I think I don't want to tie myself down to being in, I don't really like the divide of she's so West London, he's so East London, because I think then we're in this world of cliches and parodies. And I love going to Portobello, but I love going to Spitalfields, you know. Dalston is just where I'm running around at the moment, causing havoc and causing trouble.